these nasturtiums are really getting a little bit big for this container, so soon we need to find a new place for them. These mallows or hibiscus are also overgrowing their container. We have to find a place. Not really many tomatoes on this plant. They've had flowers and flowers, but I guess no pollination. But these two that are on here are looking good. So this flower bed, container, whatever, just got way too sunny for these impatiens, which are a shade-loving plant anyway. So instead of having to water them 3 times a day or so every time they started shriveling up, we went ahead and retired them to the shade here with a lot of other cuttings and various plants. Some of our new additions here are some matchstick bromeliads. Got a clump or 2 of them. There's probably 7 or 8 plants in here, and I can give a few away, keep a few for myself, maybe put one, a little clump in the ground, a little clump in a container to try to make sure I got something that survives no matter what. And this is a big thing. This is how things go, because once you're into gardening and you make connections with people that are also into gardening, you have something they want, they have something you want, and some people give them away, some people trade you. This was kind of a trade. The woman wanted a 4 o'clock, which is a flower, and I wanted some matchstick bromeliads. And these are a plant that you may occasionally find, on somebody's yard, and you never see them, as far as I'm concerned. As far as I've never looked for these and found these in a garden center or a nursery. So this is not something that you can really find when you're looking for them. When they show up, you need to ask somebody, hey, you got a clump of these? Can I have a pup or whatever? Or do I have something that you might want that I can trade you for? So speaking of giving people stuff and trading stuff, and if somebody helps you out with gardening stuff, you might have something to offer. Sometimes they don't even, some people don't want to accept your offers. And well, I don't really need it. But if you get too many things from somebody, you do not want to wear out your welcome. Get something that they don't have, and they can either trade that to somebody else or decide to propagate or plant what you give them, or whatever. So I gave this lady that's helped me out a few times cuttings from 3 or 4 different genetically different crosses, elderberry crosses. I gave her some autumn olive cuttings and some arrowroot plants. Basically, somebody gave me a clump of arrowroot plants. I put a little clump of them here. I gave one to somebody else, gave another one to also somebody else, gave another one to somebody else, and I still got more to pot up or give away or whatever. Somebody has to buy, plants from an original source, because there's no mom and pop big nurseries that are able to sell at a decent price in the area. People can pay a lot of money, especially if they have to pay a shipping cost and stuff on a plant. There are plants that I can get locally for $4 that can cost online $20, $30, plus $20 to $30 shipping for one plant. So in that kind of thinking, somebody is paying a high price, at least initially, and if they have successes, seeds, seedlings, grafting, keeping this alive, and propagating through rhizomes or cuttings or whatever, then you're able, when multiple people do that, you're able to get free stuff or trade or get cheaper stuff, and some people will pass the knowledge on how to graft, how to keep this alive, how to keep that alive, and maybe offer seeds or seedlings to the community, cuttings. One of the big things I've learned, at least recently, is that if you are a lone gardener without like all these connections to people, especially local connections to people that have not like opened up their horizons, experimented, brought new plant material in, and had successes on all of the failures that they'll probably encounter, without those people, without the experimentation, your world is not going to open and expand in the gardening realm. Not nearly as much as it should, or could, I should say. So, if you are an introvert like me, you might need something to help you expand on. Oh, I just want this, or I would like to have this and that. Can I have this, please? People will help you, but they may only help you so much before they get tired of you asking and not giving anything, back to them. So the elderberries are something that I can offer, and I just this year just started offering some of these crosses, these elderberry crosses. And if you smelled how good that smelled, wow. So now with I'm not going to say I worked 15 plus years doing elderberry research or anything like that, because I haven't. I just experimented for a short time, was able, because these guys bloom and fruit on first year wood, new growth. It didn't take much for these name cultivars to breed and stuff with the wild cultivars that I had here. And now they're just breeding back and forth between each other, and they're creating their own cultivars every time a new genetically different plant pops up. The chances are, like in this area here, the chances are big that these are all crosses of my original crosses. So this year we've looked and are continuing to look at where the old goat pen was, and I can already tell, visually smell, and etc., that we probably have several genetically different plants in there, and they're all seeming to be better than the Florida wild elderberries that are around here. So for the most part, we may pick some, if there are any better than 2015 best, is what I'm calling this one, then we will, kind of name some and be done with it. For the most part, our work here is done. We've released, 2015 best. I'll release it to a few more people. And, if we get better cultivars that are just breeding on their own here, we may release more. But this is a contribution that I've had to the plant, the plant trade here, I guess, the local plant trade. And of course I have an autumn olive that's 15, 18 foot up there, and here's the close-up of the leaves here. And I have nothing to do with breeding this guy. This is a named cultivar, And nobody in Florida really messes with them. They have such a bad name in other states from being invasive, like in Tennessee where they're banned. And somebody was telling me they were just like propagating everywhere in like West Virginia or something, in pastures. But here we got them to flower, and they never produce berries. They never seems to like root sucker or anything like that. So, and they're nitrogen fixing. So these guys so far have been tame, I guess, not invasive, but and the main use, I guess, is just for nitrogen fixing. Plant with other fruit trees, and it'll kind of help feed the other, walnuts or whatever you want to plant. And so that's kind of a contribution I'm making, is starting to not release, but to get these locally into the hands of people that are scared because it's considered invasive in another state. Third, the Mary Jane mulberry. I have given this to reptile and tortoise breeders in the past, the cuttings, but until recently I've never given it to people in like the nursery trade. They have never seen anything like this. I was told when somebody first looked at this, that's not a mulberry, that's a hibiscus. Well, look, this is a 35-foot plus hibiscus that's probably 25 to 30 foot wide. Wow. This is a male, non-fruiting. What's interesting about mulberries is most of them are female, from what I've seen, at least in the area. I've never seen a mulberry that has never fruited. So, from what I've read, they only produce like different sexes when they're needed in the area. So most likely if you have a town with 100 mulberry trees, just everywhere in the woods and everywhere, there's going to be a male somewhere just because it's needed, just enough to spread some pollen around. What's also interesting is they say that the females don't produce seeds, or they produce seeds that are not viable if they do not have a male around. Guess what? This is a Himalayan seedling. I think that I've read that Himalayans are seedless, but guess what? If you got a male, I'm guessing that from what I've read, anything will have seeds, viable seeds. So the stamens or whatever, the blooms are as large as like the Himalayan, female berries. I think 3-4 inches long. Guess what? This guy here could be an awesome breeding project with like something like the dwarf everbearing or some other type. This just expands the opportunity for people to breed new cultivars of mulberries just by having this, and the novelty factor of having like this marijuana like leaf. Mary Jane, male Himalayan seedling. And I'll probably get more of these out of people. It's amazing that this guy, no one has ever seen this on a mulberry. I mean, I can't say for sure no one in the world, but no one in the local nursery field or anybody has seen one. So if 5 or 10 or 20 years from now you see somebody saying, hey, this is a new cultivar mulberry, I invented this. Guess what? I did. I didn't invent it. It was a chance seedling. But it's the original tree is growing right there. This is 2023. This guy's probably close to 20 years old, 35 foot tall. It took somewhere around 15 years for me to realize it's a male. So it took that long for it to bloom. I was so disappointed it wasn't a female. Wouldn't that be awesome if it was such a weird and different leaf and it also had an awesome fruit, like a female fruit on it? So while I do not have the land to plant like 500 mulberry seedlings, from this male and all the other females and stuff I got, to see what each one does, as far as fruit size, quantity, and all that stuff, and quantity. I'm still just getting rid of seedlings that are most likely bred with that male to whatever else I have. Dozens of them, and maybe in 6 or 8 years, or 10 years, or 15 years, if people that I knew that I give these plants to, if I start seeing fruit from them, or they say, hey, those seedlings you gave me is producing fruit, it's awesome. Maybe it'll pay off in some way. Just me knowing that my genetic plant there produced something awesome. But this is going to open up the world of mulberries here to people selecting what was at least a seedling of an improved cultivar. Imagine how, if you could get like the dwarf overbearing, which just has a little mulberry like that, and had similar or the same quality as one that got like 3 or 4 or 5 inches. Oh my God. You don't have to invent your own or breed your own elderberries, pawpaws, mulberries, any of that stuff to give back to the community. You can just, if you go to a plant show, flea market, whatever, you pick up some plants you like, they do well for you, somebody else has some plants that you want, and they don't have the ones that you have. Hey, do you want this taro here for your ginger, hidden ginger, or, shampoo ginger, or, arrowroot, Turk's cap hibiscus, whatever it is. That's how you start, and that's how you keep people helping you by helping others.